You are listening to the Real Estate Blind Bid Provocateurs, a podcast taking a bold stand against the opaque and frustrating process of blind bids in residential real estate. Blind bids have long plagued real estate with uncertainty, mistrust, and manipulation with the truth. This podcast is a production of True Home Value, the pioneers of transparent open bidding, where every detail of every offer is available to every buyer. Let's get into it.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Estate Blind Bid Provocateurs. I'm James Clark, your host, along with my co-host here, Cayenne Brownell.
Hi, James.
How's it going, Cayenne? You had just written an article, The 7 Ways Agents Lie with the Truth. And we're going to do a podcast series on each of those. So this is number 1, and this is actually episode 7 of the Real Estate Blind Bid Provocateurs. Let's set some context for this, because we don't want to be misconstrued in terms of how we're positioning or even talking about agents. So give a little bit of background on why we're talking about this and maybe a little bit of explanation of our position.
Absolutely. I think that the most important thing for us to stay focused on is the fact that it's a flawed process. The system is bad. And in this case, agents are good people often in a bad system. And so I want us to be careful when we're talking about the 7 ways that real estate agents lie with the truth, to not cast some dark cloud over real estate agents and say they're all bad people and they're intentionally deceptive and manipulating things. That's not the truth. The truth is the system's bad, and it forces good people to operate within this bad system. And one of the things to keep in mind with agents is that very often they're in contractual agency agreements with their buyer or their seller. And as such, they're bound to a fiduciary duty to that client. They have to act in their client's best interest. And for instance, if you're a listing agent, your duty is to your client as the seller. You may be forced to use these tactics that are a feature of the system in order to best realize the highest price for your client and to fulfill your fiduciary duty.
Everybody's operating within the constructs of a terrible system, which is the blind bid system that we're continuously, it's the name of our podcast, the Blind Bid Provocateurs. Number 1 in the 7 ways agents lie with the truth is we have multiple offers. Jump into that a little bit for us.
Okay, so just the phrase, we have multiple offers, in and of itself probably isn't a lie. It's the truth. But what it instantly implies in the mind of the buyers and the buyer's agent is, oh my gosh, let's just call it the bidding war psychology. It instantly triggers the bidding war. And it makes people think that your offers are above asking and that it's escalating. It forces buyers to react in a urgent system that they may not have otherwise reacted in. It forces them to escalate their price maybe above where they were comfortable. And the reality is, the term multiple offers doesn't mean that you have multiple offers above asking price. It very well could just be a lowball offer that comes in. Virtually every listing, the first thing you get is some lowball cash offer from one of these investment firms that are just trying to basically scam sellers and pick up something $100,000 below asking right off the top. So the term multiple offers doesn't necessarily mean that they're at or above asking, but that's what it implies.
Right. It immediately triggers urgency, and I'm in competition now. What's typical of the buyer? What do they do when they see this?
I would say the first initial response, and again, this is just an attempt by buyers to control a system that can't be controlled. It's out of their control, right? But they're just trying to have their arms around this. So the first reaction typically is, I'm not getting into a bidding war. And that works maybe your first time out. But the truth is, in the last 5 years, for the most part across the country, if you're unwilling to compete and place an offer into a situation where there are multiple offers, then you're probably not going to buy a house because that's the way all the houses are being sold. So this concept and this stern position, I'm not going to get in a bidding war, doesn't really hold up. And typically, second or third house in, you're right in there competing with everybody else on the multiple bids.
And one of the reasons I would assume they're saying this is because maybe they're thinking I'm bidding against myself. Was mine the best offer?
Exactly. And I think at the end of the day, it goes back to the underlying issue in the real estate process, the lack of transparency, the lack of trust, which brings into question the integrity of the process. And that's what everybody is ultimately should be upset about. We don't buy anything in our lives this way. Why are we buying real estate this way?
Absolutely. 100%. Okay. Thanks, Cayenne, for going through the first one. So we're going to be coming back with number 2, which is we have a second showing. So that's going to be our next episode. We want to thank all of you for listening to the Real Estate Blind Bid Provocateurs. Thank you, Cayenne, and everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Blind Bid Provocateurs. If you learned something today and are ready to bring trust, transparency, and fixed cost to residential real estate, then don't be shy about it. Tell your friends, colleagues, and family. Perhaps you know someone who was thinking about buying or selling a home. Do them a favor and hit that share button and text a link to this episode. They'll be sure to thank you. If you prefer to watch your podcast as videos, guess what? We're on YouTube. Find us by searching for True Home Value. And thank you so much for listening. And that is about as much as we can incite in a day. Have a good one.